Story 1. The Overflowing Cup. Sometimes wisdom cannot enter because we are too full. Think of how many times in your own life you've sought answers while already carrying your conclusions. You asked for guidance but secretly hoped it would confirm what you already believed. And when life's lessons didn't fit your expectations, you dismissed them, closing the very door you claimed you wanted open. There is a famous Zen story that captures this perfectly. A student, eager for enlightenment, came to visit a master. The student spoke endlessly about the philosophies he had read, the practices he had tried, and the insights he had already gathered. Patiently, the master listened. Then he began to pour a cup of tea for the student. He poured until the cup was full, but he didn't stop. The tea spilled over, flooding the table, dripping to the floor. Shocked, the student cried out, "Stop! Can't you see the cup is already full?" The master set down the teapot and looked into the student's eyes. "Exactly. Like this cup, your mind is overflowing with opinions and assumptions. How can I show you anything unless you first empty it?" That moment was the teaching. No scripture, no long lecture, just a spilled cup. And yet, for centuries, that image has pierced the hearts of countless seekers because it reveals a truth we resist. We cannot receive new wisdom until we are willing to let go of what we cling to. How many times have you suffered not because life withheld answers, but because you refused to release your old ones? You carried beliefs like shields. This is who I am. This is how things must be. This is what I know. And those shields became walls. Growth was waiting, but your mind was too crowded to let it in. In Zen, the act of letting go is not weakness. It is the first step toward freedom. Imagine a clenched fist. No matter how small or large the gift, it cannot be placed in that hand until it opens. The same is true of the mind. Wisdom requires space. A Zen master once said, "The usefulness of a cup is in its emptiness." If we focus only on what fills us, our certainties, our stories, our past pains, we miss the true purpose: to remain open, to remain ready, to be filled again and again. Reflect on your own life. How many times has your suffering been prolonged because you kept rehearsing old hurts, replaying old arguments, defending old identities? Like the student with the full cup, you insisted on being right, even when being right made you miserable. But here's the liberating twist. The moment you set down what you cling to, the moment you say, "Maybe I don't know, maybe I don't need to be right," the world opens. Peace enters. Healing begins. Letting go is terrifying because it feels like loss. But in reality, it is the clearing of space. Just as a farmer must clear weeds before planting seeds, we must empty ourselves before receiving truth. The weeds of pride, fear, and uncertainty choke out the possibility of wisdom. The story of the overflowing cup reminds us that every day we must pour out a little of what we think we know. We must make room. Otherwise, life cannot enter. So ask yourself, what fills your cup right now? Is it anger you keep sipping long after the moment has passed? Is it pride that leaves no space for humility? Is it fear that convinces you there's no other way? If so, it's time to let some of it spill over. Only then can you taste the fresh tea of wisdom. Only then can you begin again with clear eyes and an open heart. But if letting go is the first step, the second is learning how to carry life's burdens without breaking. Story 2, Carrying the Woman. The weight is not what breaks you, it's how long you carry it. Think of the grudges you've held for years, the regrets that echo in your chest, the guilt that whispers in the dark. The event itself may have passed long ago, but the memory still clings to you like a shadow. And in the end, it's not the moment that destroys your peace. It's the way you keep carrying it. There is a Zen story that illustrates this with piercing simplicity. Two monks were traveling together when they came to a river. At the bank stood a young woman, afraid to cross. The older monk immediately offered help. He lifted her onto his back, waded across the rushing water, and gently set her down on the far shore. She bowed in gratitude and they continued on their way. But as they walked, the younger monk grew restless. Hours passed. His silence turned into agitation, and finally he burst out, "Brother, how could you do that? We are monks. We must never touch a woman, let alone carry her." The older monk smiled softly and said, "I set her down hours ago. Why are you still carrying her?" That single question slices through excuses, through judgments, through centuries of human habit. Because isn't that what we do every day? Something happens, a harsh word, a betrayal, a mistake, and long after the moment ends, we keep carrying it. We replay the argument, we feed the bitterness. We carry the woman across not one river, but every mile of our journey. We suffer not from what happens, but from what we refuse to release. Think of your own life. What are you still carrying? The harsh words of a parent long gone? The betrayal of a friend who has moved on? The shame of a choice you made decades ago? The weight is not in the event. It's in the way you clutch it to your heart. In Zen, letting go is not denial. It is not pretending the river didn't exist. It is acknowledging what happened, but refusing to turn it into a lifelong burden. The older monk didn't ignore the woman. He helped her, then released her. The younger monk didn't carry her body, but he carried her in his mind, and that was heavier still. How often do we do the same? We let our minds drag us back to past rivers, carrying passengers that no longer exist. And the cruelest part is this: the longer we carry them, the heavier they become. A grudge repeated becomes anger. Anger repeated becomes hatred. Hatred repeated becomes illness. But the instant you decide to release, truly release, the weight dissolves. Like setting down a stone you've forgotten was in your backpack, you feel lighter, freer, more alive. There is an old saying in Zen, let go or be dragged. Life will keep moving. The river will flow on. The question is not whether you will face burdens. The question is whether you will carry them beyond their moment or allow them to rest. So ask yourself now, who or what are you still carrying? And more importantly, what would your life feel like if you finally set them down? Because the truth is, peace does not come from never having burdens. Peace comes from knowing when to put them down. And once you learn to release, you'll face the next truth. Sometimes silence is louder than words. Story 3, The Master's Silence. Not every question deserves an answer. Not every insult requires your defense. Yet how often do we fall into the trap of justifying, explaining, or fighting back? One sharp word and we fire back with two. One criticism and we exhaust ourselves proving it wrong. And in the end, we aren't stronger. We are emptier. There is a Zen story that shows another way. A wandering monk entered a village where not everyone welcomed him. One man in particular hurled insults, calling him a fraud, a beggar, a disgrace to the robe he wore. The crowd watched, expecting the monk to argue back or defend his honor. But he did not. He simply stood, eyes calm, face soft, and said nothing. The man grew louder, angrier, but the silence swallowed his words. His insults echoed in the air, yet they found no place to land. Finally exhausted, the man walked away. while the monk continued on his path undisturbed. Later, a student asked, "Master, why did you not reply?" The monk smiled. "When someone offers you a gift and you do not take it, who does it belong to?" That is the power of silence. It is not a weakness. It is not a submission. It is mastery, because silence can expose what words only hide: the emptiness of the attacker, the futility of the attack itself. Think of your own life. How many battles have you fought that only left you bleeding inside? How many times did your response fuel the very fire you wish to extinguish? Every time you engage with negativity, you carry it. But when you choose silence, you return the weight to its source. Silence does not mean indifference. It means clarity. It means knowing that not every stone thrown is worth picking up. In fact, sometimes the strongest voice is the one that doesn't rise at all. In Zen practice, silence is not empty. It is full. It is present. It is the refusal to let another person's storm decide the weather of your heart. That is why masters often say nothing in the face of provocation. Their silence is not a lack of reply. It is the deepest reply possible. Imagine this in your life. The next time someone tries to drag you into anger, what if your answer was stillness? What if, instead of defending yourself, you let their words dissolve into the air, powerless without your participation? It feels unnatural at first. Our pride begs us to fight back. Our ego demands to be heard. But silence is not about denying yourself. It is about protecting yourself. Because in silence, your energy is not wasted. In silence, your peace is not disturbed. In silence, you win without ever needing to fight. The man in the Zen story left the encounter empty because he realized something profound. Insults need an audience. Without one, they collapse. So here's the question for you. How much of your suffering comes not from what was said to you, but from how much you chose to carry it? The Master's silence is an invitation to let the world shout while you remain still. An invitation to show strength not by force, but by refusal. An invitation to remember that your worth does not live in anyone's words. And yet silence alone is not enough. You must also learn to see beyond appearances. Story 4, The Sound of One Hand Clapping. What if the answer you seek is not in the noise, but in the impossible? Most of us spend our lives chasing solutions that make sense, fighting to understand every problem with logic. But what if the deepest wisdom begins where logic ends? There is a Zen koan, perhaps the most famous of all. What is the sound of one hand clapping? At first it seems absurd. We know clapping requires two hands. How can one hand produce a sound? Students who first hear this koan laugh, frown, or grow frustrated. Some try to create the sound by waving a hand through the air, slapping their thigh, or imagining a phantom hand joining it. Each attempt is logical, and each attempt misses the point. The master does not answer. The master waits. Days turn into weeks, weeks into months. The student wrestles with the question, unable to solve it, unable to let it go. Finally, something extraordinary happens. The student stops trying to solve and begins to see. He realizes the koan is not about finding an answer, but about breaking through the prison of the rational mind. This is the true purpose of the koan, to pull you out of the trap of duality, of this or that, of yes or no. The sound of one hand clapping cannot be found by logic because its truth is not logical, it is experiential. It forces you to confront the limits of the thinking mind and awaken the intuition that lies beyond it. Think about your own struggles. How many times have you tortured yourself with questions that had no answer? Why did this happen to me? What's wrong with me? How do I fix this pain? The mind demands a solution, but sometimes life offers none. The harder you try, the louder the silence becomes. And yet it is in that silence, beyond answers, where peace often emerges. Zen masters say that true wisdom does not come from accumulating knowledge, but from shattering illusions. The koan is a hammer. It breaks the walls of logic so you can step into the vast openness of awareness. When the student finally surrenders, when he allows himself to not know, he discovers something greater than an answer. He discovers presence. The sound of one hand clapping is not meant to be heard by the ears. It is meant to be felt by the heart. It is the sound of awareness itself, the echo of a mind that has stopped clinging to certainty. Ask yourself, what are you still trying to solve that cannot be solved? What burden are you carrying that only grows heavier the more you analyze it? Maybe the invitation is not to find the answer, but to live the question. Because here's the secret. When you release the demand for certainty, you make room for wonder. And wonder, unlike logic, heals. Wonder softens the mind, opens the heart, and returns you to the innocence of simply being alive. The story of one hand clapping is not about failure. It is about freedom. It reminds us that sometimes the only way forward is not through solving, but through surrendering. And when you begin to see beyond logic, when you touch that quiet space where no answer is needed, you are ready for the most transformative story of all. Story 5. The moon cannot be stolen. They can take everything from you, but never your soul. How many times have you lost something, money, possessions, relationships, and felt as though your entire world had crumbled? We cling so tightly to what we own, believing our worth depends on it, that when it slips away, despair follows like a shadow. But Zen reminds us of a truth so profound that it can free us from this suffering. Nothing outside of you can ever touch the peace within you. There is a beloved Zen story about a master who lived in a simple hut on the edge of a mountain. He owned almost nothing, just a robe, a few books, and a wooden bowl. One night, a thief broke into his hut. The master, hearing the noise, rose quietly and saw the intruder searching in vain. There was nothing of value to steal. Moved with compassion, the master took off his one spare robe and handed it to the thief, saying gently, "You came a long way to find something here. Take this at least, and I wish I could give you the moon." The thief, stunned, fled into the night, and the master stood by the window, gazing at the glowing moon above. He whispered to himself, "Poor man, if only I could have given him this." This story may seem strange at first. Why give a thief a gift? But the lesson is piercing. Possessions can be taken, but inner freedom cannot. The master did not lose anything by giving away his robe. On the contrary, he gained a deeper joy because he had nothing to protect, nothing to fear. How often do we live as prisoners of our own possessions? We guard, we hoard, we fear losing what we call ours. And in that fear, we become the real thieves, stealing our own peace. The thief in the story walked away with a robe, but the master walked away with the moon, untouchable, infinite, free. The moon here is a symbol. It represents everything eternal, your soul, your awareness, your unshakable dignity. These are things no thief can ever reach. When you realize this, a profound lightness arises. Even if your bank account empties, even if your house burns down, even if loved ones betray you, your true self remains untouched, shining silently like the moon. Consider your own fears. What do you protect so fiercely that it robs you of peace? What thieves do you imagine at night, waiting to take what you love? And yet, hasn't life already shown you that nothing outside of you lasts forever? The robe will wear out, the bowl will break, the people you love will one day leave. If your peace depends on these things, you will suffer endlessly. But if your peace rests in the moon, no storm can move it. Zen is not about rejecting possessions. It is about seeing them for what they are: temporary, passing, unable to define your essence. The master could give away his robe because he was already clothed in freedom. He could not give away the moon because it was already his. And this is the hidden gift of loss. Every time something is taken from you, life is asking, will you cling to the robe or will you look up at the moon? Will you collapse into despair or will you discover the treasure no one can touch? The story of the moon reminds us that true wealth has nothing to do with what we hold in our hands. It has everything to do with what we hold in our hearts. So ask yourself tonight, if someone took everything you owned, what would remain? Would you see emptiness or would you see the moon? Because they can take your possessions, they can take your comfort, they can even take your security, but they can never take your soul. Zen stories are not just tales. They are mirrors for your life. They are not entertainment to pass the time. They are lanterns to light the path when everything feels dark. Each story we've walked through is a reminder that freedom, peace, and clarity have never been outside of you. They are already here, waiting beneath the noise. Think about what you've just witnessed. The overflowing cup that taught you to let go of what's already too heavy. The monks carrying the woman, showing how suffering lingers only when you refuse to release it. The master's silence proves that not every insult deserves a reply. The impossible koan of one hand clapping, which shattered logic to reveal wonder. And the moon that can never be stolen, a reminder that your soul is untouchable. These aren't old fables from distant monks. They are messages for you, for the sleepless nights when your thoughts won't let you rest, for the mornings when life feels heavier than you can carry, for the moments you forget that peace is still possible. So let me ask you, which story touched you most deeply and why? Was it the silence, the release, the freedom of the moon? Write it in the comments. Share it with others. Let's turn these teachings into living wisdom, not forgotten words. And if these stories spoke to your heart, don't keep them to yourself. Like this video. Share it with a friend who is struggling. Subscribe to keep walking this journey of healing and awakening together. May these stories live inside you, quietly guiding you back to peace whenever life feels heavy. And may you never forget, the wisdom you seek has always been yours.